Okay, we'll call the Common Council meeting of the City of Milton to order on Tuesday, November 29th, 2016 at 7 p.m. And can I get confirmation of appropriate meeting notice, please?
The agenda was posted at Dave's Ace Hardware, Piggly Wiggly, and Milton City Hall.
And can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All those in favor? All those opposed? The motion carries. We have an agenda. Item number 3, public comments regarding items which can be affected by City Council. And we have Jerry Schutz from the school district signed up to speak. Did you want to talk now?
I can, or I can wait till 7, whichever is easier for you.
Which, it's, speaker's choice.
I'll go now.
Okay.
So I can get out of the way.
Thank you, Mayor Welch, and members of the City of Milton Common Council. I'm actually speaking tonight on behalf of the Milton Area Chamber of Commerce, and our request, we'll reiterate the request for nonprofit funding back to the Gathering Place and the Milton Historical Society and all of the other nonprofits. I guess I want to start my speech by just simply saying I want to commend all of you in the City Council and all the department heads in reviewing their 2017 budget and how diligent you've been in controlling expenses. Less than 1% increase in overall spending is a testament to how hard you've worked through this budget development process. And so as a taxpayer, as a resident, I want to say thank you because you continue to make it affordable to live here and affordable to do business here. At the same time, I also want to express my concern and to a large extent some displeasure about the either inability and or unwillingness to prioritize funding for our nonprofit organizations. Organizations who bring thousands of people to this community each and every day, each and every week. Organizations who put together events that continue to bring people to this city, and that's good for business and that's good for our community. The $22,000 that was requested from nonprofit organizations represents less than 0.4% of the entire city budget. Yet I think all of you would agree that the value that those organizations provide in this community is significantly more than 0.4%. The Milton Historical Society have thousands of people coming into this community each and every year. The Gathering Place, over 16,000 visits annually. The meals that they provide, over 10,000 meals to seniors in need. Over 6,000 of them to seniors who cannot have the ability to get to the Gathering Place for a meal. And so those are very, very critically important things in our community. They're part of the fabric of our community. And at times I hear them classified, and I'm guilty of this, and when I worked here as well, donations. They are not donations. They are investments into our community. They provide services to our community. And deeply embedded in the city's marketing efforts, whether it be the very logo that we use, which has Main Hall from Milton College, to the Milton House, which is on the city's website. These are organizations that are deeply rooted and deeply embedded into the fabric of this community. And so my concern is that by reducing their budget allocations annually, we force these organizations to either reduce or cut programming, which will result in a reduction in visits to Milton, which is simply bad for community and it's bad for business. And so what I would ask is that if all possible, that the council consider the $3,000 that the chamber had requested and reallocating that to the nonprofit organizations who had their budgets reduced, and or if at all possible, if at the end of the year that there is any money left over in the budget, as I know in some years there have been in the past. So when the books close out at the end of 2016, if there is any funding left whatsoever that is scheduled to go back into the city's general fund balance, that those monies be strongly considered for reinvestment back into those nonprofits that were not fully funded this year. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Item number 4, Common Council minutes from November 15th, 2016. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any further comments or questions or discussions? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Item number 5, discussion and possible action regarding city assessor contract with, how do I say it?
Musser.
Musser Appraisal Service.
Thank you. If you recall, back on November 15th, we had a closed session discussion regarding the responses for the RFP in relation to the assessor services for the city of Milton in 2017 and moving forward. The council deliberated in closed session and then came back out to open session to recommend approval of the contract with Musser Appraisal Services moving forward. Attached is that contract that has been reviewed by Dan, myself, and the city attorney. And this contract would be for final approval by the city council so they could begin services with the city, well, very shortly, actually, but to start in 2017.
I'll make the motion to approve Musser.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any further comment or questions or discussion?
The only comment that I heard about the change of our assessor was the ability to locate the property information easily on the website. So I just wanted to share that with you.
Yes, and Musser will have a webpage portal that you'll be able to access the assessment data through the city's website. It would really just be a portal to their website through our website. But I will say that the information will be much more robust than what we are typically used to based on the information they provided in their presentation and as part of their contract.
And it will take some time to build that
Yes.
because he'll get the information from Accurate, but then before he gets it fully published, he's going to validate everything during 2017. So that information will probably be up sometime late in 17.
I'm truly happy that this assessor uses a popular software instead of proprietary. I'm just truly happy to see that happening.
Anything else? All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Item number 6, discussion and possible action regarding ordinance 216-426, an ordinance creating Chapter 2, Article 7, Division 5 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Milton, establishing a motor vehicle registration fee. And I believe this is our second reading.
Yes, we had the first reading on November 15th. Again, this would be the ordinance that would create the local vehicle registration fee. Had the first reading on November 15th. The fee as established in the ordinance as proposed for this evening would be the $30 per vehicle registered in the City of Milton, as previously discussed during the budget process. Tonight, the administration would recommend a second reading, waival of the third, and adoption of the ordinance, so it could be included as part of the budget process, and then we would begin the kind of administrative portion of it with working with the state DOT to enact the local vehicle registration fee. It would be our anticipation that that fee would then go officially into effect either March or April of 2017.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the second reading and waive the third reading and adopt ordinance 2016-426, creating a motor vehicle registration fee.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further questions or discussion or comments?
I have been driving back and forth and in the city of Fort Atkinson this week, just comparing the roads in that community and some of the roads in Janesville, I truly believe that if we are going to maintain our roads without letting possibly them getting into a higher cost for us, this is really what we have to do.
And we have a comment. Do you want to state your first and last name and address, please?
Nancy Seibert. I made the mistake, I guess I should have said something at number 3,
Oh, that's okay.
correct? Okay.
What's your address?
840 Rogers.
Thank you.
And don't worry, Howard, you and I had a good discussion. It's not about the leaves.
That's all right.
Okay.
That'd be okay.
Well, it is yet, but,
I know, that's
you know.
all right. Yeah.
the wheel tax. I had done some research. My problem with the wheel tax is this. that no one really knows about it, because if you don't get the Milton Courier and you don't read about it or that, people are surprised in Janesville because all of a sudden their registration fee when they go, instead of 75, it's 95. And then they say, what's that? Okay. The reason behind it is, why are we not getting the right amount of money from the DOT to take care of the roads, that we have to do this? And I was amazed. I have a money background from accounting, and I look at that, and it started in 1979. There was one that did it then, and they did it for 1 year and stopped. And now most of these, let me tell you the percentage. There's only 16 at this time in the whole state of Wisconsin. So someone might think that we're overproductive in trying to tax people, and especially when Milton here now wants to take $30. That's the most of any. No one else has $30. They all have 10 and 20. And the percentage is 50%, just started in 2016. So with other things that are going on with, and my first smart aleck answer to this would be, we don't even have as much traffic as we used to have. And now we're paying a wheel tax. We need to repair our roads. There's not too many people driving in the city of Milton anymore. And to me, I moved to Milton because I like the small town atmosphere, and I see our city changing immensely. And I think when people are going to all of a sudden realize that, hey, we're going to tax this now, we're going to tax this now, and put it, I think we're going to be hurting ourselves more than the shift of the highway did to us. You can't get a hamburger in town, you can in Merchants Road, correct, but what town doesn't have a McDonald's? What town doesn't have a Burger King? I'm almost embarrassed to say I live in Milton now, because it's just not what it used to be. And I know, okay, I'm old, but people like that kind of way of living sometimes. And we're hurting ourselves, and when the people are going to see, I'm sure we'll come up with something else that we can tax. But I don't think it's a smart way to collect the money. I really don't. Fort has it, Janesville has it now. Beloit was the one that has had it the longest, but they were at $10 and went to 20, but no one's at 30. And the attitude that, and people talk, but they're afraid to come here. They're not afraid, they don't want to come. That's the thing. And when I remember one time when we were starting with the stormwater, what happened there? Chesmore had the audacity to say, just like what happened in the paper, it says, well, we're going to have the second reading, and if there's no controversy or anything, then we don't have to do the third. We were just going to do that again with this, because no one was going to speak. So I'm speaking for some people, and they don't even know it. So I think we're hurting ourselves, but it's your decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Is there any further discussion or comment? Sure, come on up.
Rob Nadzinski. The only thing I got is, if you're going to tax cars, why don't you tax motorcycles?
So there are certain guidelines that the state determines what can be taxed and what can't.
And then, what are you doing about cars that are sitting in driveways that don't have license plates on, and it's been sitting there for 6 months?
Sure.
I mean, other cities, they send out and they get rid of those cars. You can't have them parked there unless you have license plates on.
That is a code enforcement issue that our code enforcement officer does address when we're told about it. So I would encourage you, if you know of residences like that, give us a call so we can.
One's on McCune Street, and I know cops have been there a number of times, and the van's been parked there for a long time.
Yeah, I understand. So if you could either drop us a note, drop me a note personally, or give us a call tomorrow with the addresses, and we can put it on our code enforcement officer's to-do list.
And you see grass. Why can't all the cops be responsible to enforce the ordinances, not just one person? Oh, that person's on vacation, and they keep on blowing the grass on the curb and the rain washes away, and that's not where it's supposed to be going.
I appreciate your concern. The officers aren't just driving around doing nothing.
No,
A
I
lot
didn't
of,
say
a lot of
that.
times there's other things that are going on that
But
we
I-
need to be
you know,
addressing too.
You know, they're driving down the street, you know, they could just make a mental note or just write it down, you know,
Sure.
and come back to it later, but just having one person doing it and wait for phone calls. I made phone calls before and ended up, I got bit in the ass for it.
I'm sorry to hear that.
And just a note, Mayor, we're
Yeah.
going off that topic here.
Okay.
Right,
but,
thanks.
you know, okay.
Sorry, I just need your address too for the minutes.
530 Parkview Drive.
You know, I agree with him 100%. I've
Okay.
had my neighbor have their car sitting on the driveway for 2 years with a tag of
Okay,
14.
so we have to stick to the wheel tax right now.
Oh, okay.
But you are always welcome to email, come back, or talk about that item at the beginning when it's not on the specific agenda item. But thank you for your comments, and we do appreciate you coming in and taking the time to do it. Is there any further questions or comments?
I was just wondering, Howie, maybe since we're looking at this again, could you just kind of go over the basics of what our roads cost us to maintain and how we got to this
Yep, Al will go
$30
over that.
or Al?
Al's would be probably, so you get the, you know, he's given the presentation for you, so you probably would like, it'd be better off if you want to continue, you know, it's the,
Yeah, so
The reasoning.
I think the question you're asking is the kind of the overview that we've given a couple of times in regarding presentations of the wheel tax at the council meeting and how the cost of road repairs are one of those repairs that, if left unkept, increase at an exponentially increasing rate. And the example that we've given a number of times is all streets in Wisconsin are rated on a 1 to 10 scale called a Pacer rating. All communities in Wisconsin use it. Milton uses the Pacer rating as well. And the idea is you want to get as many streets in this community as close to a 10 as possible. A 10 would be a brand new street. Parkview Drive would probably be close to a 10. Chicago definitely would be a 10. When streets start to dip down into the 6s and 7s and maybe even 8s, the cost to repair those streets is generally fairly nominal. You can do some crack sealing and things of that nature, but most commonly what is used is a term called seal coating. Seal coating is a basic, very thin layer of slurry mix or slurry patching or chip sealing is commonly referred to, that you overlay the street with in an attempt to create an impervious surface all throughout. So if there's any defects in the road, any cracks, any pieces that have low integrity would be covered up with a chip seal. And that generally costs about $20 roughly a linear foot. If the street falls below a 7 or an 8 and gets down into that 5 or 6 or maybe even a 4, you would need to do what is commonly referred to as a mill and overlay. And a surface mill and overlay in which you would take off the top 2 inches of that street and then provide a new 2 inches of asphalt generally costs about $90 a linear foot. So you can see just between those two approaches towards repair or maintenance, there's already a big jump from 20 to 90. If the street falls into about a 5 or a 4 or maybe a low 6, you might need to do a full mill and overlay, which is generally where you take 4 inches or more of that street and you mill it off, and then repave basically the entire street surface. And that runs about $150 a linear foot. If you let it get down to a 2 or 3, similar to what Parkview was when that was done, that now you're looking at about $400 a linear foot. So it doesn't take long for a street to go from a 7 to a 4. It may take it a while to go from a 10 to a 7, So the idea with street maintenance is try to catch it as early as possible. Try to provide some sort of mitigating remedy to that street in order to increase the integrity of that surface to keep it as a pervious surface. And a seal coating and those lesser costly approaches may seem unnecessary to the eye, but they extend the useful life. And the hope with the wheel tax is that we would be able to address some of those streets that are 6s and 7s and extend the useful life of those streets. So we're not in this situation where we were with like Chicago Street, where we had to do basically a full mill and overlay. That street was approximately about a third of a mile and cost about $130,000 to repair that street. So when you look at the wheel tax at $30 per registered vehicle in the city of Milton, based on the DOT numbers, we would expect to see revenues around $165,000. So if you quickly extrapolate the math on that, you'll realize that even at $165,000, you're not going to get a whole heck of a lot done if you're just going to mill and overlay. And if you need to do a full reconstruction similar to Parkview, you can't do it, not with the wheel tax money. We're not in a position, the city's not in a financial position to borrow funds for street repairs. So the idea with the wheel tax is to provide some maintenance, and again, provide some mitigating maintenance to those streets that are 6s, 7s, 8s, to try to extend the useful life of those streets 5, 10 years. So we're not in a position where we need to borrow, but also maintain the level of street surface and the level of street repair that folks are accustomed to in the city of Milton. I will say, coming from a different community, the infrastructure in Milton is far superior than what I am used to, and that is not a deprecating comment whatsoever to the city of Janesville. They have a much larger street network to deal with, but the city of Milton has been very proactive and very responsible in their street maintenance. We are in a situation in which every year we face declining revenues from the state. All cities receive the vast majority of their street maintenance dollars either through borrowing or from the state. In the city of Milton, we have to remove one of those variables from the equation, and that is borrowing. So we're left with the funds that we receive from the state. And this year alone, we saw a $50,000 cut to our state aid. This is an issue that is impacting all communities in the state of Wisconsin. In September of this year, the League of Municipalities held the first time ever a 72-county meeting called Just Fix It. And it was a plea to the state legislatures to fix the transportation problem that is impacting all local municipalities. Ms. Seibert spoke earlier about the number of communities that is increasing in wheel taxes, and she's absolutely correct. Over half the communities that currently have a wheel tax as of today were enacted in 2016. It means that this approach is hitting critical mass in which communities are no longer able to maintain their existing street network, maintain their existing infrastructure with the funds that are available to them, so they're turning to one of the last abilities to raise funds, to raise revenues in local municipalities. Folks don't realize that at this point there are very few, in fact I can probably name them on one hand, revenue sources available to local municipalities. The state has eliminated all other ways to generate revenue. The most prominent is through tax levy. Levy limits preclude the amount of dollars that can be collected or levied by a community. We're in a situation, we're fortunate in the sense that we have not met our tax levy. However, we have met our expenditure restraint in this budget. So we cannot collect any additional taxes to make up this shortfall in revenue. And interestingly enough, and I've used this anecdote with the council before, but if we were to tax for $165,000, if we had the ability to tax for $165,000, which we do not, based on levy limits and expenditure restraint, but if there was no expenditure restraint, no levy limits, and we were to tax for $165,000, it would cost the average homeowner in the city of Milton more money than the wheel tax. And that is based on the fact that there is a larger pool to draw from. There are 5,271 vehicles registered in the city of Milton. It seems odd that there are more vehicles than there are people, but that is the way it is, based on registration figures based on the DOT. And that's how you register your vehicle. So if we were to tax for $165,000, it would cost the average homeowner, based on the average home value of $134,000, it would cost the average homeowner $74, whereas the wheel tax, based on a home with 2 cars, would cost $60. So it may seem like small solace when discussing taxes, but it is, at this time, based on the constraints that are placed on us by the state and based on the opportunities that are available to us as a local municipality to raise revenues, it is actually the most cost-effective way. Short of having some change at the state in which they increase the amount of transportation funding, which is something that is certainly likely to be addressed, hopefully in 2017. There's a major push at the state level on both sides of the aisle to try to fix this issue because it is absolutely unsustainable. But short of that change, unfortunately, the local vehicle registration fee is what's left for municipalities to raise those funds. I will note, to Ms. Seibert's comments, there is now a new community, or actually a county, that has a $30 tax. The county, Milwaukee County, passed a wheel tax ordinance that is $30, and that's for the entire county. And my guess is there will be many, many, many other communities. Last year there was 7. If I had to guess, there's probably going to be a dozen or more that will adopt a wheel tax during this budget cycle. A question was asked to me today about how many communities have adopted a wheel tax during their budget process. I'm not sure. I know of Milwaukee County because it made such tremendous news because they initially had proposed a $60 wheel tax, and it went down to $30 when it was finally adopted. But there will be many other communities that will adopt a wheel tax as long as it's available to local municipalities to do so. Ms. Seibert commented as well on the other communities that are in Rock County. We are not alone in Rock County, and I have said since the beginning, because other communities have a wheel tax is not a reason to have a wheel tax. The reason to have a wheel tax is because there's a demonstrated need and a lack of funding in order to address that need, and at this time that is what we are faced. If no other communities had a wheel tax, I still think that it would be the right thing to do. And if every other community had a wheel tax and we were the only ones that didn't, I still think we should do it. But as she noted, it's ultimately the council's decision, and we have been discussing this for quite a while. It actually came up last October. That's how long we've kind of been evaluating this process. So that probably went well beyond the answer that you were looking for. But once I get started,
I know, but that's okay, Al. I just want to make sure that everybody understands that. I know, not just everybody
Right.
in our audience, but also the people that are out there on YouTube
Yep.
too. So I appreciate your explanation. Thank you.
Can I make another comment, Al? What I don't understand is, like you said, the shortfall is 50,000, but yet we're gonna collect 165,000. And another comment, way back when this wheel tax first started, some of the communities, they would put a limited time on it, not to have it, be just a wheel tax and you never go back to it because it's a fund maker.
Mhm.
And that, is there any way that it can have a limited year to year and then check? Because if the money starts coming back in from the DOT, why would you need the wheel tax again?
How I would answer that question, you made a comment about a community that initially adopted a wheel tax and then rescinded it, and then that community came back about 8 years later and then adopted it again, and that was the community of Sheboygan. Yes, you are correct. There can be a sunset date. There can be a sunset date placed on any ordinance, and the council certainly could consider that as an option, similar to what the school district did with their operational referendum of 5 years. The city council could put a sunset date on the wheel tax. However, what I would say is that the city council can choose to repeal the wheel tax at any time. At any time throughout the process, it doesn't need, even if you set the sunset for 10 years, the city council could repeal it 2 years into it. So that option is always available to councils. And to your point about if the DOT returns the funding, which we all hope they do. But the best indicator of future performance is past performance, and if we've seen anything with the way things currently are, I don't know if those dollars will return. But if they were, at that time the council should consider repealing the wheel tax. But to repeal it, I think prematurely, or maybe that's not the right word, but to repeal it without assurances of those funds would effectively create a structural deficit in the budget as it currently stands and operationally. One other piece that I will note, yes, there was a $50,000 cut to the roadway aid. That was in addition to a $25,000 cut last year, and additionally a $35,000 cut in this budget. So yes, the number still doesn't add up to $165,000, but I think most folks would, who have seen these numbers around for a number of years, would realize even the funding that we previously had was not enough for a sustainable road maintenance program. And even at $165,000, as evidenced by the Chicago Street project of $130,000, even $165,000 isn't going to be enough to make it perfect. But it's a place that we feel is enough that we can be responsible on an annual basis without overtaxing, while still being able to maintain the infrastructure that we have with some of those preventative maintenance type measures, trying to address those roads that are 7s and 8s to extend their useful life. Our goal, at least when I say our, I say city staff, is so we can put ourselves in a position where we won't need to borrow even 5, 6, 7, 10 years from now. And at an amount of $165,000, we feel that that's close. In a perfect world, $250,000 would be better, but we realize that that's not reasonable. And as a resident of Milton myself that has 2 cars, you know, I'm sensitive to these questions and comments as well.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? Okay, the motion carries. All right. Dave, are you there?
I probably put him to sleep.
Okay. Okay.
These are the stories that I tell my son to get him to go to bed. I just talked to him about the wheel tax. He just goes right to sleep. So I've got a lot of practice in that.
Item number 7, discussion and possible action regarding 2017 budget.
On November 15th, we held the public hearing. Prior to that, on October 28th, we had a budget study session, and on October 10th, we had a budget study session. So we're at the point, as we talked about way back on October 10th, to adopt the budget. On November 15th, as previously alluded to by one of the speakers, there was some heavy lifting done by the council. Those decisions were difficult decisions to make, but they were decisions that needed to be made in order to get us in line with the expenditure restraint figure that is imposed by the state. So with that being said, the budget that was presented on the 15th of November is the same that is presented this evening for adoption, with the only changes being to those that were changed by the council on the night of the 15th. Dan has provided some handouts for you as well, and we can get copies out to the folks if they want to see them as well. For those residents of Milton, they'll be seeing this piece regardless if you get one tonight or not. It'll show up in your mailbox probably right before Christmas, so Merry Christmas from the city of Milton. The first sheet, which has a lot of words on the front of it, this is the sheet that indicates how you will pay for your taxes. This is a similar sheet that's included with every property tax bill that goes out in the state of Wisconsin, and it's probably very similar to what folks have seen for years and years and years, for as long as they've been able to accept payments online. So this is simply just an instructional sheet that shows you how to pay your property taxes online. One piece that we added this year, which is on the back side of it, is just a kind of an overview, a synopsis of, so I'm paying this tax bill. Where is the money going? You know, when I write my check out to the county, who's actually getting the funds and where is it going? So we decided to add this piece this year, which has 2 pie charts on the back. The top pie chart indicates how your tax dollars are divided up in which to the taxing jurisdictions. So for the sake of, I guess, quick explanation, for every $1 you pay in taxes as a City of Milton resident, 25 cents of that goes to the county, 5 cents of it goes to Black Rock Tech, 30 cents goes to the school district, and 39 cents goes to the city. So that's the first pie chart. So that's, again, how your tax dollars are split up for every. So think about it, for every $1 you pay, 1 cent goes to the state of Wisconsin, 39 cents goes to the city of Milton, 30 cents goes to the school district. And that's based on the tax rates that have been adopted and reported by all overlying taxing jurisdictions. So this, yes, this includes the referendum that was passed, the operational referendum from the school district. The second pie chart explains, okay, so I pay 39 cents of every dollar to the city of Milton. Where does that go? And so that next pie chart breaks it down by percentages as to if I pay $1 of taxes to the city of Milton, where does that go? And you can see 25 cents of it goes to police, 3% or 3 cents goes to capital, 16 cents goes to public works, 17 cents goes to general government. The one number on here, as Dan and I put this together today, well, Dan put it together and then we talked about it, that jumps out at me, which is one that, you know, you've heard me talk about for the 2+ years I've been here, which is, you know, still a concern, is that the second largest amount of the percentage in tax dollars goes to pay for debt service. And that is, that's an issue or a condition that will continue to kind of sit with the city of Milton for the next five years at least. Meaning that the second largest expenditure, meaning we spend more money on debt service than we do on the fire, than we do on public works, than we do on the library, than we do on capital, than we do on culture and education, than we do on city hall. There's not a whole lot we can do about that number today. We've done a lot about that number over the last 2 years. In the sense that we haven't borrowed additional dollars. And one of the bigger pieces was the large refinancing that we did this summer, that $7.65 million refinancing. That leveled out our debt for the next couple of years and then precipitously pays it down very quickly thereafter. But that is a number that jumps out at me, that unfortunately is something that we don't have a whole lot of control over at this time, but something that we need to remain mindful of when we look at future decisions. So the last piece on that back page is just key budget factors. Things to keep in mind, talking points, and things that hopefully the public will see that these decisions still are financially, still have the financial aspects of it in mind, in the sense that there's a continuation of services with no reduction in services this year. The tax dollars collected in 2017 will be less than they were in 2016. And I know that Jim and Becky and everybody up here are tired of hearing me say that, but I think it's important to note that the city will be collecting less tax dollars in 2017 than they were in 2016. And that's the levy piece of it. Total budget expenditures are actually increasing by less than 0.75%. So they're increasing by less than inflation. And lastly, I've already touched on it, there's no new borrowing in this budget. And hopefully that remains to be the case for the next couple of years. So this is a new piece of kind of public education that we've tried to include. And I hate that word public education because it sounds like you're lecturing or teaching, but it's a piece of information that I think it's important for people to understand. And it's a question, frankly, that we often get. What do my tax dollars go to? There we go. The last piece is we've kind of already slightly talked about it, but this is the tax bill. This will be the tax bill for 2016 for all city residents in the city of Milton, and what makes up our mill rate. Mill rate is a common terminology used, short for millage rate, which is the tax rate that affects your that's what establishes your property taxes on your home or business that you own. And you will see that it went from 2437 to 2504 in 2016. And this won't be included in the tax bill. Well, I guess it will be right on the face of the tax bill, but what we get to see tonight is the difference between the 2 years. Anything you want to add, Dan, to that?
I would just add on that second chart, that's a breakdown of expenditures, not necessarily tax dollars. 27.5 cents of every tax dollar that we collect actually goes towards debt service. Because what that chart is just representing is what the total budget's $4.7 million. but we're only levying 3.1 million. So there's $1.6 million in other revenue, and it's just hard to delineate what are we actually spending the state aid on. You can't really pinpoint it directly towards, hey, we're spending it on police or we're spending it on library services, that sort of thing. So that second chart is just a breakout of the total budget, not necessarily where every dollar is going.
So with that being said, anything else, Howie or Scott or Lisa, that you would like to add as department heads to the budget process? Don't feel like you have to. I kind of just sprung that on you, but other than that, that's all we have for tonight. Certainly could take questions from council or the public if they have any additional questions in regards to the budget.
Okay. Discussion and possible action adopting resolution 2016-33 to adopt 2017 budget. Yeah, yes?
Before we go into a vote on this, I just want to say, first of all,
Sure.
I want to thank the city staff for the fantastic job they've done. There was a lot of sacrifices made. Secondly, I want to thank Jerry for his comments tonight. And I agree with the tremendous value that those nonprofits have to the city. However, it's my interpretation of our basic responsibilities as council people when it comes to the budget to provide the necessary resources for each department head to cover their operational expenses and whatever capital requests are feasible within the total budget. We haven't done it. We had to deal with the expenditure restraints, which took $237,000 worth of capital requests out of the budget. 2 weeks ago, several members of the council decided that we should take $6,000 more out of the public works budget so that we had enough money to donate to the nonprofits. I don't believe that as council people we have met our responsibilities by doing this, and as I said and voted 2 weeks ago, I cannot support this and will not support this budget.
Thank you, Dave. Is there any other further comments or questions?
I'll make a motion, we approve the 2017 budget.
Second.
Maxine, did you want to say anything?
I feel I voted with Dave last week, and I still feel the same way. I just can't justify our giving and taking away from our public works the money and giving it to the nonprofits. I sympathize with them, but it's not part of our job, I don't feel.
Is there any other further questions or comments?
I will repeat what I said 2 weeks ago about our nonprofits. You know, I am especially going to speak for the our aging population, who a lot of those people do depend on the gathering place. And that's the only place for that age group. There is nothing else. There isn't a baseball team or anything like that they can do that have support from other areas in the community. If we don't support the Milton House, then we're not supporting Milton. The Milton House is what Milton is. It's what it began with, and it's what it's going to end with. It's a national monument, recognized nationally from the National Park System. I don't think that it's a good idea to take money and stop giving money to our nonprofits when we have, in the last few years, actually made gains in showing the support of these organizations. The two organizations that we're supporting this year is the Milton House and the Gathering Place. And obviously, we can't give them everything that they asked for, but we want to keep their doors open because they are Milton. That is our city, and I will continue to support them as long as I'm on council.
I think we have to worry about the city's doors too, keeping them open and keeping our public works and some of those, our police department, having the equipment and keeping it in, so it's workable and we can use it.
But they just got a brand new building, Maxine. How many years ago?
Well, I know, but you can't keep cutting and cutting and cutting.
Right.
Because then one of these days we'll have a bigger payoff than we got now.
Well, but we have, our departments have received new buildings.
Well,
And
so does that mean
that doesn't mean that we're cutting them short of anything. They're not doing without anything.
But they're doing with bare minimum necessities when they could be having things that we have to keep up our equipment.
The only thing that we pulled out of Public Works was a trailer.
Linda, you take that trailer and you add it to the $237,000 worth of capital requests that were turned down. Next year, we're going to be looking at $243,000 worth of capital requests. And how do we fit those in the budget? And we're going to take something else out next year, and that figure's going to keep growing, and you're going to end up pushing that down the road till we're going to be flat on our face. We got to start making some changes right now. And like I said, I agree with the value of these nonprofits, but I think it behooves them to start looking at some alternate funding rather than depending on the city every year.
As they pointed out to us in their presentation, though, Dave, they have looked at alternate funding. Each of these organizations have looked at alternate funding, but it's also the responsibility of the city to support its citizens. The DPW equipment is not going to feed somebody lunch.
It helps with it facilitates the operation of the city, and the facilitation of the operation of the city has got to be our primary concern. If the city doesn't operate, the citizens aren't going to get taken care of either. They're not going to get the services they've got now. The next cut's going to be in city services. And how do you think that's going to go over?
I'm not going to look for any future cuts that need to be made because I think in the coming months and the coming years, as we continue to pay down our debt, we will be able to do more things for our city departments. But in the meantime, we need to continue to recognize all of our citizens.
I don't have the number right in front of me, I'm sure. I think that was pretty close to what it was.
Well, I think one thing is that all the departments did was they look at what are their essential needs and what are their wants, just like we do in our own budgets. So we want them to to request items, but we also want them to look at what are the essential needs that they have. And the DPW department requested a new bucket truck. Correct. And what they came up with as being responsible partners was that they would not buy a new bucket truck, that they would get a used bucket truck, and that would meet their needs. So, you know, I agree with everybody that we should commend our city staff because they looked very closely at what they wanted and what they absolutely needed. The other point I would make is that, you know, it's all good to have brand new equipment, and we want to have all the equipment and capital expenditures that we need to run the city. But if our citizens don't find value in living in our city, and people don't find value to come to our city to live here, to raise their families, or to stay here and retire, then it doesn't matter how much equipment we have if we don't have investment in quality of life and things that people value. And I know that our senior citizens value that the gathering place. I've heard from many, many people about please do what you can to assist the Milton House. And we actually, heard from people that said, wow, you didn't invest enough in the areas that make Milton a place where we have a high quality of life. So, there's lots of ways to look at it. And I agree, we can't cut, but we can't just look at it as just our operational budget, but the entire city that we have an impact on. And you can read all about that in my column in the Courier this week. And if you really want to look at what happens to cities that don't reinvest in the quality of their life, do a study on Flint, Michigan, because that's what they did. They cut. They didn't reinvest anything in their city. Nobody wants to live there. It's not just because of the water, but there's no value. So I think it's really a careful balance that we have to have here. And, hopefully in a few years as we pay down our debt, then we will have some more flexibility. But that's not going to happen for a while. And we have to live with decisions that previous councils have made. And I was somebody that was on at least part of that decision-making progress. And many of the people sitting on the council were part of incurring an awful lot of debt. So now we have to live with it. But at the same time, I do believe in reinvesting what we can in the city that, we all love to live here. And that's my, that's my little spiel for tonight.
I don't mean to be getting down on Public Works, Howie. I know that you have done a very good job of being frugal in that department, and I have to agree with what Dave said too. All of our department heads did an awesome job in determining what their needs and what their needs were, and working with what we have to work with. We just don't have a whole lot to work with, unfortunately.
And I have spoken to the nonprofits too and said, there's no promises for next year. We're doing everything we can for this year, but there's no promises. So, they have some forewarning that maybe next year it would be an even tighter budget. So,
Mayor, if I can just have some, for the record, if we can just clarify when Alderperson Jeremy Zajac had made the motion to approve the budget, I take it you meant by that you were making a motion to approve resolution 2016-33, just for the record. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
My second was for that.
and that's what Ryan's second was for too. Okay, I'm gonna call the question. All those in favor? Okay, I called the question, so y'all got to vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? It's a tie? Okay, I'm in favor of a budget. Aye. Any general items? Linda?
How did you know that? Just because I have a stack of papers in front of me? I just want to remind everyone that this weekend, the city of Milton has got a lot of things going on. We have the Optimist Club Breakfast with Santa at the high school. The poinsettia and wreath sale is still going on at the high school. The Bain Hall College has a Nutcracker exhibit. Santa is arriving at Goodrich Square at 4:30 on Saturday, where he will be doing a tree lighting. From there, he will come down on the fire engine to, I'm sorry, I meant Junction Square at 4:30, and then he's going to be coming down to Goodrich Square at 5 to light the trees down there. We will have a bonfire. There's a opportunity for photos with Santa for $5, or you can donate 2 items to the food pantry. The Scouts are doing baked goods and hot chocolate, and I'll let Lisa talk about the library storyboard. And then there's also a quilt raffle. And these are things that some of it's what we did last year, and we tried to do a little bit more this year. Unfortunately, for our trees in the downtowns, we're about $500 short, but we're going to utilize what we have and try to light up as many trees as we can. There is a little contest going on between the city residences. If you care to participate, we're doing a little lighting contest, light decorations. So I look forward to seeing what everybody has out there in their yards, even though I don't have any in mine yet, but I hope to see a lot of people out for the bonfire on Saturday. It's going to be a perfect night.
There's something Sunday at the Gathering Place, isn't there? Or no, the Christmas walk is Sunday,
Yes.
right? Any other general items? We don't have staff reports or anything else on here, so if anybody else wants to add a comment to general items.
The Christmas walk is
Awesome. Okay, if that's it, motion to adjourn.
so moved.
Second.
All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, we're adjourned.